Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We've got good, bad, and crazy martinis for you today. And Jim, I guess the first one's kind of in the eye of the beholder. This is certainly within the right of Nebraska to do this, but it's getting a lot of buzz lately about whether Nebraska will change the way it handles its electoral votes. It has 5 electoral votes, and it's one of 2 states, along with Maine, that does not have a winner-take-all system. So right now, if you win in Nebraska, you automatically get 2 electoral votes. And then you also get 1 electoral vote for each congressional district. And in 2016, Trump got all 5. In 2020, Biden won the 2nd district, which is mostly Omaha. And so Trump got 4 out of 5. So the unicameral legislature in Nebraska, with the support of Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen, had been trying to, or at least some had, been trying to change that rule and make it winner take all, that all 5 electoral votes would go to the winner of the statewide vote. That did not succeed yesterday. In fact, it was considered out of order because it was not germane to the topic, as you write in today's Morning Jolt. And then on an appeal, it lost by a wide margin. So I don't know if there's going to be much push again this year. My own personal suggestion on this is if you're going to do it right after a presidential election so you don't have so many different factors going close to an election day. But it's certainly within the right of Nebraska lawmakers to do this. Obviously, at some point, they set up the current system, unlike 48 other states. So if they wanted to go back in this direction, they certainly could, the hackles of the MSNBC morning panels notwithstanding.
Greg, when you use the term unicameral legislature, my first thought is, Nebraska, you just got to be special about everything, huh? Every other state's got a very clear, simple, we got a state house, No. We're only going to have 1 state legislature. And we're going to do this system to allocate our electoral votes differently, which for a long time, it's always been on the books. It was just, not really a factor because Nebraska, generally a pretty Republican state, they were giving all the same way. And up in Maine, generally it was a Democratic state for a bunch of years, and it would all go the same way. And then the last couple of cycles, we actually had it both. And I think it is reasonable to believe, I haven't been able to find any polling in Nebraska that breaks it down by congressional district. But if the last time Trump and Biden were on the ballot against each other, Trump won the state by something like 18 percentage points statewide. But that Biden won the 2nd congressional district by a decent margin. It was like 6 points, enough to make it solid. It's reasonable to think you'd see a similar result this time around. And does this matter? It probably won't, but there's this fun little site, 270 to win, where you get to, plug in where you think each state is going to go. And if you say the blue wall states hold for Biden and he wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, most polls have him trailing in those states. There's a new poll that had him up in Wisconsin. And then the other kind of swing states that people are paying attention to, I think you put Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia on that list. If all of them went for Trump and you give 1 electoral vote up in Maine to Trump, which happened really the last 2 cycles, you end up with 269 to 269. And it's for everybody, oh my goodness, what do you? Well, then it goes to the election would go to the House. Each state delegation would get 1 vote. This would probably end up with more votes for Trump. But remember, it's the new House, not the current House that makes that. So that would be dependent upon Republicans keeping control of the House. And as you probably noticed, it's a really darn thin margin right now. By the way, the Senate, the vice president would be selected by the Senate. Each senator gets 1 vote. So it's not inconceivable. Not likely, but not inconceivable. You could end up with President Donald Trump winning a 2nd term in 2024 with Vice President Kamala Harris. And besides the the cabinet meetings would be fun with that one. Also, Mr. President, hire a food taster. Or it's also not crazy to imagine a scenario where Biden, the Democrats win the House, the Republicans are supposed to do well in the Senate races. We'll see how things shake out. Where you end up with President Biden and whoever Trump's running mate turns out to be ends up the vice president. And but that guy'd be feeling pretty good because it's, you think you're holding out for 4 years, Mr. President? Good luck. Let's see, The Republican vice president would just be humming Hail to the Chief every time he or she got dressed in the morning looking in the mirror. Look, is this good news? It has not been something we've had to worry about. when I do these kinds of things, fill in the map, usually I just put all 5 to Trump. But yeah, maybe he doesn't. Maybe, Omaha, which is the centerpiece of that second district, goes Democratic. I think I'd like whoever wins. I'm not a big fan of either candidate. I'd like to have a very clear result on when all the votes are counted in 2024. I'd like there to be no disputes, no controversies, no shenanigans, no claims that somebody. And I just think a scenario where it comes out to be either 269 is bad. 270 to 268 would also be very bad. And in any kind of scenario where, only because these states have these, ways of allocating the electoral votes, you and I know it, our listeners know it. I think there are a lot of Americans who don't know this and who would think this was some shenanigans pulled out of nowhere. So I wouldn't mind a clear result, and it feels like this is a way to give a slightly clearer, more consistent result across all states. We'll see how the news goes today. Probably by the time people hear this, it may have already been voted upon. Not looking great, but we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and they always have a chance to revisit it. It's just fascinating to watch all the hand-wringing going on MSNBC and other places about this ever since it kind of bubbled up to the mainstream national media. And so, of course, they're accusing the Republicans of trying to manipulate an outcome in the Electoral College. Meanwhile, these same people would be perfectly happy if states that statewide voted for a Republican would flip their electoral votes over to Democrats because of this whole national popular vote movement. So you tell me which one's more radical.
I was going to say, if you really think, it's perfectly fine for Nebraska, well, what if we did that here in Virginia, where Trump would probably get 3 or 4 electoral votes at minimum, maybe more. He probably would win a couple of congressional districts. You could really make this a more interesting, election by making more states this way. All of a sudden, California would not be 54 votes for the Democrats. So the inconsistency, the fact that 2 states do it very differently than the rest, kind of sticks in my craw. It's all constitutional and in keeping with the law. But I think if we're going to start changing, maybe we should have one consistent standard across all states. I'm open to that argument. We'll see how it shakes out.
Oh, man. Think about how many more areas of the country would be bombarded by political ads if you did it by congressional district.
Think about how many more states would matter. I mean, I can tell you how the president 2024 is going to go based on 6 states. Democrats are convinced North Carolina is a swing state. I am not convinced. If you want more states, California would matter. New York would matter. All kinds of places in the country would matter if we went to that. I think that would be a long road between now and that point, though.
All right, let's talk about 4Patriots. Find their great deals at 4patriots.com/martini. Right now, you can get good deals on things like the Leafy Greens Hydro Garden Seed Kit, the 4Patriots Bountiful Green Plant Food, the Sonowrap Therapeutic Blanket, and the Solar Go Fridge with solar panel. But the thing they're really, really excited about right now, and they should be, the return of the deluxe 3-month survival food kits. They are back in stock after being sold out for more than a year, and now they're back with better recipes than ever, including pancakes, mac and cheese, Aztec chili, potato soup, spaghetti, and lasagna. These 3-month kits give you 688 total servings, or just under 8 per day. Also, enough for about 1,500 calories per day. So check it out. You can stash food away and be confident that when a disaster strikes, you and your family will be ready. Go to 4patriots.com/martini to get the deluxe 3-month survival food kit and the peace of mind that you deserve. Plus, get free shipping on orders over $97. That's the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now, and this leads off your morning jolt today. We already have a country that's not real thrilled with its choices for 2024, and I'm not sure how many Americans are exactly thrilled to have another autobiography from our 42nd president, but nonetheless, this coming November, I assume just after the election or something, former President Bill Clinton will publish a new memoir called Citizen, describing, as you say it, his personal and political life after leaving office on January 20th, 2001. So I assume it starts off with how they stole all the flatware and the plates and the other pieces of furniture and tore all the W's out of the keyboards in 2001. I assume in sincerity that this is going to be about the Clinton Foundation and how all this great humanitarian work he's done over the years to alleviate poverty and disease and all sorts of other things. I think it'll probably be pretty light on how the Clinton Foundation fleeced Haiti. And as you point out in the Jolt today, this might be a chance for somebody to finally ask Bill Clinton some questions about a guy he doesn't want to talk about, and that's Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, Greg, I just want to begin by saying that mostly I've spent my years after leaving the White House reaching out to young people, particularly young women. And when I say reaching out, I mean really hands-on. Anyway, I don't know how many more years I'm going to get to do a Bill Clinton impression. They've done all kinds of studies. They've done all kinds of reviews. The official conclusion is that Epstein killed himself. I love the jokes that, this painting ain't going to hang itself like Jeffrey Epstein. But nonetheless, it was a very suspicious death. And the claim from Bill Clinton, the only time he's ever put out, he put out one statement in July 2019. It is 2024. It's 5 years ago. Was that he said that, he was only on the plane, the one nicknamed the Lolita Express, only was on it 4 times. And flight records indicated it was closer to 26, which is, I know people are shocked Bill Clinton would lie about something like this. It's so unlike him, but nonetheless, he's never really been held to any serious accounting about, so what were you doing with this guy? Why were you guys hanging? Oh, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein visited him like a whole bunch of times when he was in the White House back in the early to mid 90s. So it's not like they suddenly became buddies shortly after he became president. How did you run into each other? How did you meet? What did you do? What happened and all this kind of stuff? And Bill Clinton doesn't do a lot of interviews, but he does do these interviews every now and then. And he never gets asked about it. Never. Now, I'm sure in some cases they negotiate it and say, oh, you're not allowed to ask about these sorts of things. We're only going to talk about the Clinton Foundation and la-di-da, great stuff that's doing. But I just love to see him get a really tough questioner on this. And just to see what he does. He might get a purple rage. He might, storm out. I don't know what's going to happen. It just certainly seems like, I just find it mind-baffling that a former American president had a seemingly close... Okay, Bill Clinton insists he barely knew the guy, but he traveled with him 26 times. That certainly seems like, and everything else we know about Jeffrey Epstein's life is that it was this, I'm going to say demonic, and I do not mean like genuinely supernatural possessed. I'm just going to say like really, really evil, right? Demonic debauchery and exploitation of young women, often underage women. And I have a very tough time believing that Jeffrey Epstein was that guy with the rest of his life. But every time he hung around Bill Clinton, he acted like a saint, and they just talked about, Aquinas and the philosophy of Robespierre. And no, I really don't buy that. And then, of course, there was a statement secondhand, heard from one of Epstein's victims, but who said Bill Clinton likes them young. Do we know if that's true? Look, all I'm saying is that Bill Clinton, you look at his record while he was in the White House, the idea of inappropriate sexual shenanigans with much younger women, we can't say, oh, that's not the sort of thing Bill Clinton would ever do. So I'd love to see Bill Clinton get subjected to all of this. The second thing, which I think is, I saw in the comments section of today's Morning Jolt, and I think it's not the center point, but I think it's a thought worth keeping in mind. I do not like Donald Trump selling Bibles. I do not like him selling Trump sneakers, the NFTs, all kinds of other ridiculous ways of cashing in on his on all this. The expectation is that most presidents' books are ghostwritten. You sit down with the ghostwriter, you tell some stories, and they fill in the blanks. Is having a ghostwritten autobiography put out by some publisher and getting paid millions, is it that different from hawking NFTs and Trump sneakers and Trump Bibles and stuff like that? There's a difference, but I don't know if it's that big a difference, that in the end, you've been a famous public figure and you're cashing in on any way you can. So again, I just love to see Bill Clinton get asked more tough questions about this. I'm not counting on it, but it'll be very interesting if Bill Clinton can do a book tour and never get asked about Jeffrey Epstein in however many weeks that he does it. So something to stay tuned about.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if there aren't. I assume he'll do a limited number of interviews with carefully selected interviewers, and that might be
Stephen Colbert.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
the smart left guys,
Right. Yeah, maybe somebody from today, and it probably won't come up. Do you remember when he opened the library, the Clinton Library in Arkansas, and Peter Jennings went down there, and Jennings brought up at least the Lewinsky scandal and maybe the whole things. And watch yourself, Peter. Watch it.
He did one interview where who was the guy for NBC who asked him, because he'd co-written a mystery novel with James Patterson, the one man thriller factory, and the president is missing and banging an intern or whatever the title of the book was. And somebody asked a question, did you ever apologize to Lewinsky? And got that purple rage that I cannot believe you would bring that, you would degrade this conversation, this very important conversation we're having about this thriller novel that I had ghostwritten with James Patterson. Yeah.
There's like 3 different ways Clinton talks. There's the really fast talk when he's trying to get out of trouble. I never said that. You did. You said that over there. And then
Greg, I was never alone in that hotel with her. There was no point in which the hotel had just myself and her. There were always other people in the hotel.
Then he's got the lofty Clinton rhetoric. I stand here and say to you today. And
I'm so profoundly humble. My humility is so much better than yours.
That's right. And then he's got his usual speak, too. But I hope it comes up. I'll be surprised, actually, if it does, given that even though he was a big problem for Democrats a few years ago once the Me Too movement came out and you had some people coming out and saying, oh, we handled that badly. We should have been tougher on him. I'm guessing now they're not going to bring it up. But we'll see. I hope you're right that somebody actually has the guts to do it. Whether it's agreed to or not, hopefully somebody has the guts to do it. Well, you don't need guts to get fast-growing trees. This is a no-brainer. It's the biggest online nursery in the United States with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and more than 2 million happy customers right here in the U.S. You can grow lemon, avocado, olive, or fig trees inside your home. Plus, there's the wide variety of houseplants they have available.
Fast-growing trees makes it easy to order online, and your plants will be shipped directly to your door in just 1 or 2 days. And along with their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, they offer free plant consultation forever.
All of our plants have shown up in fantastic condition, but if they don't, we have certainly heard from friends that they will make it right. They say the Alive and Thrive guarantee is legit. And like Jim said, consultation forever. If you don't have a green thumb, that'll come in handy. Fast Growing Trees has the best deals online, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to this show, the 3 Martini Lunch, get an additional 15% off their first purchase when using the code Martini at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Martini at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code Martini. Offer is valid for a limited time, and tell them that we sent you. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And it's not often we hear from Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, but every once in a while when Southwest Airlines goes haywire, he'll make an appearance. And last week, he was there when the bridge came down in Baltimore. But he was on Fox News earlier this week, speaking with John Roberts in particular. And John Roberts, pretty tough with his questioning about flagging EV sales and demand just not being there. But the Biden administration is pushing forward with its goals for a high percentage, like 2/3 of new vehicle purchases in the United States by like 2032 to be EVs. That's only 8 years away. And right now it's in the single digits. So they got a long way to go. And there's a good reason why those numbers are not where the administration wants them to be. So here's John Roberts presenting the facts and then some severe gaslighting from Pete Buttigieg.
Tesla sales fell 8.5% the first quarter of this year. Ford this week is laying off 2/3 of its workforce at the F-150 electric Lightning plant. It's also scaling back a battery production facility because of sagging sales. EV sales are nowhere near what this president wanted or expected, yet the administration continues to shove them down consumers' throats. Why?
Well, let's be clear. Consumers have wanted and purchased more EVs every single year than the year before. And, Tesla is facing more competition as GM and Ford and Stellantis and other competitive players start to make sure they get a piece of the EV market. Let's be clear that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and we can't pretend otherwise. Sometimes when these debates happen, I feel like it's the early 2000s, and I'm talking to some people who think that we can just have landline phones forever.
I want to ban the phrase, let me be clear, because every time they do it, it's just a complete smokescreen for the talking point they want to make. So, Jim, more people wanted EVs than last year. Okay, but it's still nowhere near the demand you expected. And then he says the industry is moving towards EVs. Yeah, because you're forcing them to, because of your emissions mandates and everything else. And Jim, I don't remember there being a mandate about the percentage of iPhones versus landlines that people had to produce 20, 25 years ago. So a lot of different ways we could target this word salad from Pete Buttigieg. But what jumps out to you?
My first thought was like, oh, come on, there can't be that many people who are wireless only. Well, the numbers, most recent one from like June of last year, is that actually more than 70% of households are wireless only? So all right, okay, that really did increase. You're probably at about 25% landline and wireless. And believe it or not, there are, apparently 0.6% of Americans are either actually 0.6% are phoneless, God, their lives must be easier. And 1.3% of Americans are landline only. So, like, okay, credit where it's due. Like, that is a change. But you look at it, it's a very slow, steady change. And it generally, my guess is that what people need out of a phone and what people need out of a car are going to be two different things. What people can afford is going to be significant because the cost of an electric vehicle in a lot of cases, not all, but a lot of cases, is significantly higher than gas-powered ones. And generally, you're getting what you pay for when it comes to electric vehicles. That, yeah, look, Teslas are cool. People like people who have them love them. They're also really pricey. There are cheaper models of electric-only vehicles on them. Those are the ones that take longer to charge, and the battery runs down faster, and all of that is a larger complication. I'm reminded of how often people start scoffing. Why do so many Americans need SUVs? I don't need one. I live in the city. Well, yes, because you never, need to run around. For people who need to haul stuff around, whether it's for yard work, whether it's for construction, whether it's just for a whole bunch of groceries, whether you've got a bunch of teenagers, do you have seen what teenagers eat? People have different needs. So just the fact that you don't need one or that you find a electric vehicle, go right ahead. By the way, I noticed that not a single person in the Biden administration who has an official motorcade has an electric vehicle because you can't have an electric heavy SUV to be the beast to protect the president or any other high value target. People have different needs, and the most people would say, okay, well, if electric vehicles get really good, more people will buy them. And if they become more affordable, the percentage of the public that can afford to buy them will increase. We already have, is it still the 7,500 tax rebate is in there? It went down a bit, and eventually it's now this complicated formula based upon the battery and the size and how much of it was made in the U.S. and whether the moon is rising in Sagittarius and all kinds of stuff like that. But we already give a fairly significant tax advantage if you'll buy an electric vehicle. What it is that, I Pete Buttigieg, I know better. Never mind the fact that, everything's falling up. Your flights are still delayed. The bridges are falling down. Everything, nothing works as well as it used to before I came onto the job. Trust me, everything's great. And I know better than you. I know what you should be driving. Look, I have no doubt that in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 25 years, the number of electric vehicles on the roads is going to increase. The percentage of American drivers who use electric vehicles is going to increase. But everybody should be making their own choice of that. The government should not be coming in and shoving you into making a particular choice. And it is just an example of how this administration, there's nothing in life that they do not see as something which their regulations can, will help you make the right choice because we know better. No, you don't. That's not your job. Just fix the roads. Just fill the potholes. That's all I'm really looking for, Pete. Why is that too much to ask?
Yeah, basically what Jim is saying is let the market work. That's what happened with iPhones and other smartphones and other technology as it came along. It wasn't that the government said that your options by a certain date had to be this percentage of the new items. And just to add insanity upon insanity here, just saw this story in Politico today where experts on our nation's power grid are freaking out because they think that by 2032, I don't know why that's a magic year, but nonetheless, probably because they know all these EVs are going to be coming online if the mandates continue, that the nation's electric grid can't handle it. It says between AI, crypto mining, EVs, home heating and cooling needs, all sorts of other things, the grid is going to be completely overwhelmed. And meanwhile, they are retiring coal and natural gas-fired power plants faster than the new solar and wind power can replace them. And of course, they're not producing as much power as those previous plants anyway. So we're basically slamming our foot on the accelerator into a brick wall for something that's probably not going to be ready. And so if they don't ease up between now and then, good luck plugging your car in when the grid's not letting you do it. So fun times.
I wish it was Friday, Greg.
Speaking of tomorrow, though, we have a very special episode, as I believe we mentioned earlier in the week. And as you all know, of course, Jim Garrity was in Ukraine for the better part of about a week and a half, I think, last month. And so earlier this week, we recorded our special on what Jim learned on that trip. I'm in the process of editing it, and it is absolutely fascinating. I learned so much in this conversation, and I know you will as well. So make sure you check that out on the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. So, Jim, officially, I'll see you tomorrow. In reality, I'll see you on Monday.
I'll see you Monday, Greg, and I do not want I wish it was Friday, to be interpreted as, I wish I didn't have to tape a podcast today, because we're not taping tomorrow. We have the pre-taped one. I'm always happy to spend time with you, listeners.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please subscribe to the podcast if you don't already and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep this coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Thursday and join us tomorrow for the Ukraine special right here on the 3 Martini Lunch.